Just, yeah, here we are. I think it's making signs. This is Jackie Markham. I'm talking to Doreen Beaman on the 18th of November 2019. We're in Moss Rose Cottage, Kingsland, where Doreen lived as a very small child, but it wasn't her first home, I've just learned. Can you tell us, Doreen, when you were born and what you've just told me now about living at Broomy Hill?
I was born 1945 in Birmingham. Mum was up there with her family and Dad was in the army. When he was coming out of the army, we eventually moved to Broomy Hill, where we had a tiny little cottage. And then from Broomy Hill, we moved to Moss Rose Cottage, which, visiting now, it's so different. Just looking at it, it seems so tiny, but it was home. Up the garden, we had an outside toilet, as everyone did, I suppose, then, which was covered in ivy. It always had spiders. It was always dark. It was always cold. But my grandparents, they lived at the Lion, and eventually they wanted to retire. So we moved down to the Lion, and my grandparents moved up to Moss Rose. Again, it was hard down there as a family, because Dad wanted to keep animals, so he kept some livestock. He also worked for Bengras at Longmoor, and he also had the pub. So Mum used to go in the pub during the day, open up. Perhaps sometimes there'd only be one customer there, but she had to stay there. Dad went to work, sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock. But before going to work, he had to go out to feed the stock and then go to work. Mum used to then go in the pub. As children, I lived at the Lion. Glyn was born at Moss Rose Cottage. Steve was born at the Lion. So we had a happy childhood, hard but happy. There were many families down there. The Dykes, Tracy Hammonds, the Savages who lived down the lane, and Rosemary Morgan.
That's lovely. Can you tell me, Doreen, here you were saying that you had a pump?
Yes, we had a pump here.
But no bathroom. You were bathed in
a tin bath. We had a tin bath. Again, we had a tin bath at the Lion. So we didn't have a bathroom there for years.
Well, when do you think the bathroom would have been put in?
I'm not sure. I think it must have been after Glyn was born, obviously. But down at the Lion was very similar to this. We had a bath once a week in front of the fire in a tin bath. It must have been very odd to people listening now, but no, there it is.
You told me before that a disaster happened to your doll.
Oh yes, that was at Moss Rose. I was having a bath one day, one evening I expect, and Glyn was tiny, and you didn't have many dolls, you didn't have many toys at all, but I had this doll, and Glyn had got hold of it and he threw it in the water. Well, it just disintegrated, so I was so cross about that.
And Doreen, can you tell me how the Moss Rose Cottage used to be linked to what is now 2 cottages next door, but it was one, and who lived there?
There was a policeman next door to us. There was a door going through from the lounge, which is now, and outside it was just a walk through, and everybody could walk through, coming or going. And the policeman, he was called Jane, and I remember he had a boy called Terry Jane. He was a big boy. But
and what about school?
School, we used to go up to school here. which was enjoyable. We had teachers, Miss Morgan, two Miss Morgans. They both lived at the Showers, and a Mrs Davies. She lived at Shirl Heath, and then Mr Jones and Mr Welson. And we went to school at 5, and we either went to Wigmore or to Leominster, or we left school at 15.
Mm. What did you do yourself?
I left school at 15 and then went to work.
Where did you work first?
W.H. Smith in Leominster. Yes, yeah. I was obviously down. We were down at the Lion then, and Mum wanted me to go to do something, but you know, you have other ideas as a child, and you just want some money and to do different things. So that's what I did.
You were telling me about your tricycle.
Oh.
You were quite safe to cycle it up and down the village on your own as a little girl.
Yes, everyone was safe.
Mm.
Not like today, but I had this little blue tricycle which my grandfather had bought me, and I was very proud of it. And I used to come up to see Roz, who was a friend of mine who lived next door. But she had a party, and I obviously didn't want Glyn to go, so I sent him home. But eventually Dad came up on his bike. Glyn had woken him up, and I hightailed it home on my little blue wheeler bike, never to be seen again.
And something else you said, you spent hours and hours in the river, but that would be down towards the Shaky Bridge.
Yes, we went down there first thing in the morning, and we spent all day down there. A family down the lane, Enid and Elsie Savage, David, Morris. There were quite a few children, and they used to have, we just used to have fun with them. Tracy Hammonds, he came along as well. And Brian and, what was the brother's name? Brian Davies from Holgate. They were the other children down the bottom of the village.
And what about socialising? Do you remember the Coronation Hall being open?
Yes, I remember the dances up there, but again, we didn't used to go very much because we had to get home after, and we didn't have a car. Dad still had the pub. So.
Did you think it would be too far to walk back?
Yes, yeah. Late at night.
Mm. That's right. There
used to be quite a few children actually in the village. Although they were about a couple of years older. The Kellys and Robin, Jimmy Kelly and Pat Kelly, Robin East, Tim Whitbread. So we had quite a few children, in the village, but they were children, and we used to play on the road, and everything was safe.
Everyone knew everyone, I imagine.
Yes.
Mm.
And I remember when I used to live here in Moss Rose, the Davises had the Angel, and Jean was a wonderful cook, and Mum used to just push me across the road, I expect, and I used to end up at the Angel, sat on the table with Jean, who would be cooking. And she always said, right up until she died, that she said, "Oh, you were a little bugger," she said. She said you got a toilet roll one day and you absolutely ripped it to shreds. Which, I don't expect they were cross or anything. But that's what she said. Oh, bless her.
I didn't realise that Jean had cooked at the Angel.
She was a beautiful
Yes.
cook.
Yeah.
I don't expect she cooked because we didn't have catering then. But you know, she cooked there.
They sometimes had people to stay, didn't they? So she'd be cooking breakfasts and things.
Probably.
Like that. Yeah.
But it's the cakes and things that I remember. And then Fred and Walter used to have the shop.
What can you remember about the shop?
The shop. Again, it seemed huge. And you went up some steps at the front, and there was, I don't know who the baker could have been, whether it was Fred or Walter, but I remember they used to bake there. And then I remember going up on my bike from the Lion to get Hot Cross Buns first thing in the morning, which would be really warm, and then racing home with these Hot Cross Buns. So somebody must have been the baker there.
Yes. Yeah. And what do you remember about the post office and telephone exchange?
Not a lot. Can't remember much about that. Just where places were. The prices. There used to be a cobblers there, didn't there? There was the cobblers.
By the corners, do you mean? Or?
I'm sure that there used to be a cobblers where Lisa. I'm sure there used to be a cobblers there somewhere.
At the Garth, yes.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it was a little building out in the front.
Yeah, there used to be the
Stone
cobblers
house.
there. And, well, we had everything in the village that you'd want. Hairdressers, cobblers, butchers, bakers, doctors. It was perfect.
When I came first to Kingsland in 1969, you honestly could get everything.
Yes.
Everything you wanted in the village.
Yes.
Amazing.
And it's such a shame that village life is gone.
In that respect.
In that respect, yes. But I think you have to move on.
So they say.
So they say.
What about holidays?
We didn't take any.
Right.
Mum and Dad never had a holiday together all their life. I used to go as a small child again. Dad used to borrow a car. We didn't have a car, never had a car. And Dad used to take me up to Bucknell and put me on the train in charge of the guard. And I must have only been about 5 or 6 at the time when I first started going down there. And my cousin used to meet me in Ammanford.
Is that South Wales?
And that used to be my holiday. But Mum and Dad, I don't think they ever took a day off together.
Golly, yeah.
Because we had the pub and we had livestock.
And in those days they rented the pub. They rented here, of course, from Eddie Davies. And you were friendly with his twin
with the daughters,
and
yes.
all the horses.
Yes.
And then they rented the Lion, but they did buy the Lion.
Yes, we did buy the Lion. And Dad lived there for quite a few years.
And he had a very good garden, you were saying.
Beautiful garden, yes. Everything in his garden. And I tried one Sunday afternoon, again, I remember the garden, and I thought, well, I'll help him. So I hoed. I shouldn't have hoed. I think I had a telling off then, because I'd hoed something that I shouldn't have. But he had a lovely garden.
And what happened with all these pigs? You seem to have a lot of pigs.
He sold the pigs. They used to go to market. We had one cow who had always had a calf, and then he used to buy a calf to go on to the cow. But as a child I always wanted a pony, but Dad used to say, no, you can't have a pony because I'd rather have another calf. So that used to be it, and until Claire and Sarah came along, and then of course they got round Dad and we started having ponies.
Yes. So he would have ponies for his grandchildren.
Yes.
And you had Kerrys, I remember.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And chickens?
Chickens, yeah, we had chickens. We had everything, a little bit of everything. Might have only been one or two, but we had chickens.
And so did you milk the cow for yourself as well? Was it the house cow provided milk for your...
To start off
family?
with, and
Yes.
until the calf,
Yeah.
got sold, and then that was it.
Yeah. Did your mother ever do anything like make butter or cheese or anything like that?
No,
with the milk?
no, because there wasn't enough from the cow.
Right. Mm. And she was very busy.
Yes, yeah.
Mm.
Like my auntie, she used to, Dad's sister, I used to go up to them sometimes in Brecon, the other side Brecon, and she used to make butter. It was lovely.
Delicious. Anything else you can think of, Doreen? You obviously remember what's now known as Mercia House being built, didn't you? Because the policeman moved from here
Down
to there.
Yes. And after they must retire, the Janeses, and then the Taylors moved in. Again, they were friends, and they used to just come across the field, the meadow. And it's funny how things pop into your mind. We had to we had to turn the meadow by hand. Dad would get someone to perhaps cut it, but we turned the meadow by hand with hay, and that used to be 2 or 3 times. And then he used to borrow a cart horse from Oz Langford, and Mum and Eve Taylor. Eve had come down just as she used to do, and as children we used to egg them on, so we egged Mum and Eve Taylor to get on this cart horse. Yes, the cart horse will be fine, don't worry. Well, as children, what do? You slap the cart horse's bum, and they went round that field screaming. Oh, well, we were screaming, laughing, but perhaps it wasn't so funny.
Oh, wonderful. Well, and where, in those days, where did Ozzy Langford live?
He lived at the mill. I'm sure he lived at the mill.
So that would be before Trevor Morgan.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful, Doreen. Anything else pop into your mind? Or?
No, I don't think so.
No? Well, thank you so much. It's lovely hearing these stories, and if we're allowed to use some of the photos, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Shall I switch it off?